What is going on, everybody? It is Mark Cargilla, lead faculty and CEO here at Modern Pain Care, where we make you the complete clinician. Here for another episode of the Modern Pain Podcast. And this episode stems from a post that Jarod made the other day. We're in September right now, so if you're listening in the future, that's when we were speaking of this. This is coming off of COVID. We're September 2021, hopefully coming off of COVID, I should say. But a lot of us struggling. I know I've been struggling. Jarod and I've bounced, text back and had conversations of just, man, when are we going to kind of get back to normal? It's been very stressful on the home front, the work front, the life front, and a lot of people struggling professionally, personally, and everything in between. And let's bring in our co-host, and he can kind of lay some of the groundwork as far as the post that he made, and we'll have a good discussion about this because I think it's a valuable episode. He had some great feedback on the post, and I thought it was a really well written post that met a lot of people where they were at and had a great response. So, Jarod, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to be on this morning talking about this because it's a topic that's been weighing heavy on my mind. It's been something that's been affecting me personally on multiple fronts, and it's something that's obviously affecting all of us and weighing a lot on everybody right now. So I feel like it's a good idea to maybe just chat about it a little bit and see if we can give some perspective, or at least try to provide a little bit of grounding for people that are dealing with all of this.
Yeah, it's almost like when you talk about it too. I was like, God, just what you see out there in the media and on social media, just the divisiveness, the polarization, and where this thing has gone. And seen it in my own family and friend networks where it's really divided and damaged some relationships with how it's going. And maybe we'll see what we talk about on that front. But in the end, let's just take care and be good to one another overall, and respect each other for our unique human individual characteristics. But can you lay out a little bit of the post and kind of your thought process around it and kind of where you're at as far as the COVID fatigue? Because I think, as I had kind of mentioned, we're all at a point, I think, where God, it would be nice just to have normal life again. I mean, there's definitely some things that have become more normal. We traveled, my wife and I traveled to Ohio, although it was definitely different. Everybody's masked, and thankfully nobody made a ruckus on the plane or in the airport, but it's definitely different. And, but also, obviously people have had a lot of big changes career-wise and in their workplaces and in different things. But what really, kind of in your maybe life did that kind of stem from, that, what your view of what you were seeing going on around COVID and the COVID fatigue that was kind of being witnessed by yourself? What kind of things kind of formed that for you?
Yeah, I think that I'm not in a unique position, but I'm in a position that a lot of other people aren't in, just due to the line of work that I'm in. For those of you who don't know, I manage a region for a physical therapy company. So I have, 50 some odd employees that are under my supervision. And at the same time, I also teach at a local PT university. So I'm interacting with multiple cohorts of students at the same time. So I'm in this position where I kind of get to see how all of this is affecting student mindsets. It's affecting other professor mindsets, and it's affecting the workforce. So being up close and personal with all of those different perspectives over the last 18 months or whatever it's been. I've really got a lot of different perspectives, and I've seen the way that this is affecting people on a personal level and people on a group level. And that's kind of what led to my post, is that I think that I've been lucky enough to see a lot of different perspectives, and also, hopefully maybe bring a little bit of an outside perspective to that, because I'm seeing some of the same things in so many different domains. So that kind of led into the post, because really what I'm seeing is in school, for instance, with students. This is not what students signed up to go to PT school for or graduate school for. They didn't sign up for virtual classes. They didn't sign up to have to do all of their lectures sitting at home, on the couch and not meet their classmates and not meet their cohorts. They didn't sign up to have to wear masks and gear in labs and have their lab time restricted, or you know feel at risk of having a problem if they're practicing lab with their classmates and that sort of thing. They didn't sign up to have to watch their professor talk to them or lecture at them from behind a mask and not have the same interaction that the experience that you and I got to have, because PT school was a phenomenal time in my life and I enjoyed it, and the closeness and the bond that I created with those people. And it's a really family oriented, close knit type of program. And I don't think that students are getting that now. And that's just from a PT perspective. And I can't speak to med school. I can't speak to, regular university or anything like that, but I can only imagine that it's somewhat similar. Um, and then on the flip side of things, in the workforce, what I'm consistently seeing is people that they love their job, that like they have loved being a PT, they have loved working in this environment, up until very recently, and now people are feeling dissatisfied with their work. They're feeling dissatisfied to some degree with patient care. They're feeling dissatisfied with personal relationships. They're feeling dissatisfied with their friendships, with their family relationships, with maybe their spouse or significant other. And what I started to recognize is that a lot of this dissatisfaction that you might feel with your job, or you might feel with patient care, or you might feel with your spouse or your friends or your family, well, that's probably not so much driven by the fact that you don't like the profession of physical therapy or medicine. It's not driven by the fact that you really have deep seated issues with your spouse or your family or your friends. It's driven by the fact that we're dealing with, uh, just an unprecedented amount of stress and amount of exposure to social influences, both on social media and in the regular media, on the news channels and the newspapers and that sort of stuff. And what it's really come down to is a hyper polarization event and a hyper politicization event, where there are two really big ends of spectrums, and everybody's kind of trying to push their agenda on the other end of the spectrum. And if you're somebody like me, it's relatively in the middle. And I want to say that a lot of people are in the middle, but you don't realize that and you don't recognize that, because all you see is the far ends of the spectrum, because the loudest voices get the most airtime. Um, but I would say the vast majority of us are somewhere in the middle, and we're looking around and we're seeing all of this stuff that stresses us out. And that leads to an event where, your cup runneth over, where the same exact cup analogy that we give to our patients about pain, about the allostatic loading model, and you get too much water in the cup and it overflows and you have a flare up. All of our cups are full, and that is manifesting itself in a different way, whether it's stress, whether it's anxiety, whether it's insomnia, whether it's stress eating, maybe it's over exercise as a stress relief, or maybe it's the lack of motivation to even go to the gym now. This can manifest itself in so many different ways, and I would bet that there's a lot of people listening to this, and there's a lot of people out there in the world that they're experiencing effects of a hyper stressful environment right now that they don't necessarily recognize or haven't pegged to that environment. And they're pegging it to the most transient, closest thing that they can think of. It's their job, it's their patients, it's their spouse, it's their family, it's their friends, it's everything else, because we as humans want to ascribe, a reason to everything, and we want to direct, input and output. But I think that my perspective has been that there's a lot of maybe misappropriation of those feelings, and I want to urge people really, really stress the fact that this is stress manifesting itself, and not to make any rash decisions, not to try to step back and look at what's going on in your life and the way that all of these factors may be influencing you, and how that could be influencing the way that you feel about things, that maybe if you rewind 18 months you wouldn't have felt that way about those things, and you wouldn't have gotten upset about those things that maybe you're getting upset about now. because your bandwidth is really reduced. And I know that this just turned into a monologue and a really long, discussion, but it's just there's so much on my mind lately with this, and it was getting me down too. It was getting me in a really bad mental headspace, and I was talking with my wife about it this past weekend, about how I was just in that bad headspace. And that's what led me to write that post, because writing is somewhat therapeutic for me, and putting my thoughts down actually helps me understand what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking, and then going through and trying to organize that in a reasonable and logical way is what helps me ground myself. And I was hoping that if that helped to ground me, maybe it would also reach a bunch of other people and help to ground them as well.
Yeah, no, I think it was a very well written post. Obviously, it was received well by people. You could tell it tapped into some, parts of everybody's current existence that resonated. I think I definitely can relate to some of it as far as ascribing career dissatisfaction and just being frustrated with a lot of things that you step back and well, it's just my job. I'm just it's not, I'm not happy with blah blah blah, and yet and there's so many parallels too. You think with some of the things we see in clinic where these hyper stressful events that happen in patients' lives, and obviously pain, the cup around thorn, like you mentioned, and pain kind of becomes part of that experience. And we ascribe to people hyper focus on my back, where maybe if we look big picture on what's going on around the world of them, in clinic and in their life that is happening around this painful event, that maybe we can draw some connections to what's going on in their life. But man, we also see it in patients too, just with so many of the folks that especially our senior citizen population, where talk about life shrinking for some people, man. Just saw a lot of people who have just been struggling with social. We've lost a lot of that social grooming and the social connection that we function and live and thrive on as humans, and it's definitely taken its toll. Starting to see some of that come back, as far as being able to gather and have that social connection with people that we know has such a positive influence on us as humans. But yeah, we've lost a lot of that. And it's been interesting too, being in an academic setting, to see students, they didn't sign up for any of this stuff. They didn't sign up to have to learn from home. Professors too, man. I just seeing my wife as a professor at a university, and having to just completely flip things on the fly, and change the way they instruct. I mean, there's definitely programs that were ahead of the curve on the virtual instruction and different things, but some that was pretty much all live and in person, and then having to take that, very stressful for professors. I've definitely talked to more than one that were, man, this is hard. Is this what I want to do? Them professors struggling with students who are struggling with the at-home learning. I mean, both professor and student struggling. I mean, it's been hard for everybody, and I think just having some self-compassion for yourself of, man, this and taking perspective on what's going on around us, instead of like you said, misascribing, maybe it's because of, my relationship with my wife or my relationship with my job, that maybe if we take that, perspective and zoom out a little bit, we can see that, man, we're living in a world right now where we cast stones at each other. It's so divisive right now. It's hard to even have a conversation around COVID and different things sometimes without feeling like you're going to have, the fangs come at you from either side, because you're right. The voices that get heard on social media are the ones that are on the polarizing sides, that scream the loudest, that have the biggest opinions often, when often the more nuanced, kind of knowledgeable position is one that's probably somewhere in the middle. It can float back and forth, but it's honoring people that have that ability to have their own opinion. I think we get sides that ostracize each other, in regards to vaccination status, in regards to people's choices around what they're doing around COVID. I think, man, it's a tough environment to navigate. It's uncharted waters for everybody, and I think it's a lot of people judging each other. But I think, again, we just as clinicians especially, I mean, care for your fellow human, and you don't always have to agree. I don't always agree with what my patients do and how they're rolling with life, but I also don't live in their shoes and haven't experienced their life and haven't. I think we should practice what we preach in that front, as far as we can't just try to pull people to us and to what we think or believe. We need to honor their beliefs and their experiences, and come to a, that shared narrative that maybe we don't have to perfectly agree with each other, but we don't also have to hate each other. We don't have to like drum up all this like vitriol and man, it's just it's kind of frustrating and almost depressing to a point to see some of the things that you see around, and maybe we should listen to people that have expertise in the thing instead of politicians. But that's a whole nother discussion that I'm not even going to tread barely into that one, because I don't want to get any hate mail here on the Modern Pain podcast. So um what would you think is a good way to plot forward with this stuff, Jarod? I mean, obviously COVID probably isn't going away, as much as it sucks to say that. It's probably not going away soon. But if we got some students listening here, what would you advise them? How would you say, hey, how can I kind of navigate this? Maybe I'm in the classroom, maybe I'm looking to enter a career, and man, well, how do I go about kind of navigating this with and not feel like I'm going to go crazy or maybe made the wrong career choice or those type of things?
Man, well, I don't know that I'm the I don't know that I'm the guy with all the wisdom or anything like that, and that's a heavy burden to try to give that direction. But I think that I would really encourage people, as difficult as it is, to try to zoom out a little bit. And if we're lucky, if we live our our full life, we're going to live 79, 80, 81, 82 years, right? That's our life expectancy right now. And this has sucked. This has been 18 months of suck. But I do believe that it will pass, and we will get to a reasonable, normal status that reflects a lot of how we were before COVID. I do think that there will be some slight changes, that we do have to deal with, but uh, I do know that this will pass, and we will get through it. And when you're 20 years old, or 25 years old, or 30 years old, or 40 years old, even, um, it's hard to recognize that 18 months, while it's a long time, or 24 months, it's also a relatively short amount of time in the grand scheme of your life. So I would strongly encourage people to, if they can, try to recognize that this is to some degree temporary, and that some of the things that they're feeling right now will likely ease as we start shifting back into more of a normal style of life. If you're a clinician right now and you're feeling burnout with patient care, you've been in patient care for a year or two and you're feeling burnout with it, I mean, recognize that you still have potentially 35 more years of patient care that could be totally different than what you're struggling with right now. And that, of course, they'll come with their own struggles and everything. But try not to make rash decisions. Try not to make any big changes, or anything like that while you're under immense stress that may be a temporary stress, if that makes any sense. And you know, I would recommend people, if they can, or if they're interested at all, to maybe pick up a little bit of Stoic philosophy, and maybe read a little bit of the works of Zeno and Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, and those people, or the New Age Stoics. Maybe some people that regurgitate and reorganize some of that old material, like Ryan Holiday, or something like that. It's been very, very helpful for me, and I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I do think that putting those thoughts in that wisdom, at least in your head, can help ground you a little bit.
Yeah, Stoic philosophy has been. I think Jason Silverman and yourself were probably two folks that kind of pushed me towards that, and I've actually gotten read a decent amount into it. It's been very helpful from a personal just growth and managing my own self, which highly recommend just checking it out. Doesn't mean you have to get into any crazy. It's just school of philosophy way of kind of managing life and what we deal with in life. And I think it's a definitely worthwhile thing to check out. So yeah, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and yeah, but Ryan Holiday, I think it has a dailystoic.com if I remember something, and I get his emails on a day-to-day basis. Worthwhile checking out. Just some words of wisdom from some people that lived pretty successful lives as humans, and had some pretty positive influences on the spheres that they operated under. So with that, I think we'll wrap it up today. Hopefully this episode was helpful. Jarod and I both thought it was just worth coming on, especially after his post and the positive response it garnered, just to talk about it. I think we'd love to hear your comments, either in the social media post that this thing comes under, or even on the podcast post. If and I know we post these on YouTube as well. Like to hear where you're at, where your struggles are, what you found helpful when you've kind of navigated this fun situation that we're all dealing with. We're all humans, man. We have feelings, we have experiences, and we all have struggles. And this one has definitely tested us all, and hopefully we'll come out of it the other end, better for it. Unfortunately, I mean, definitely we've all had some loss. I know I have. I know known some folks that have gone through some struggles with this stuff, but let's support each other. And it's okay to have differing views on things, but we can all honor that the ability for us to have those different views, and try to find a common middle ground that moves us all forward in a positive direction. But anything else you want to leave folks with before we finish up here, Jarod?
As you were talking, I was just thinking, if I could at all give one bit of advice to tell myself repeatedly, and maybe other people as well, is uh, right now all of the big stuff is weighing us down. But if you can find the ability to focus on the little things, focus on the positive interactions and relationships that you do have, focus on the the good, maybe relationship with your spouse or your friends that you have. Focus on the good in your work. What are they doing to support you? Or the ability to help patients and work with them, the ability to help mentors, maybe if you're a professor, mentor students through this difficult time, and help them still become a successful clinician. And if you're a student, the fact that you're still getting to interact with and learn how to spend the rest of your life helping other patients navigate through really difficult scenarios. And just focus on, rather than focusing on what's really not good right now, actively search for the little things that are really, really good, and keep those front of mind.
Good points, my friend. And we will leave you guys with that. Definitely reach out to us if you have any thoughts or comments on what your experience has been, or some thoughts or some advice. We're always game to hear what's been working for other people, or their perspective on things. I think it all helps to just kind of share kind of our stories, and kind of where we're at. And I think, as we talk, and as I talk to Jarod, I just, hear a lot of similarities as far as what, you kind of don't recognize that we're all probably going through a lot of internal strife and struggles as we're navigating this thing. So hopefully we can kind of support each other and push each other through this. And like Jarod said, get on the other side of this, because I do agree. Eventually, I think we will be in a better place, and eventually things will be back to somewhat of a normal sea, with probably some minor, some changes that we'll have to adapt to. But let's focus on that. Let's keep our eyes on the prize and support each other in the journey. And until next time, we will talk to you guys later.